Hello, welcome into the Starters Podcast. I'm Dave. That's Simon and George. How's it going, boys?
What's going on, Dave?
All good,
Not
Dave.
much. All right. We had the Habs offseason, I guess, officially started today. They had their postpartum, press conferences and interviews, and it was quite entertaining to watch. I just want to know, guys, going into the offseason, what you guys think is the Habs' biggest offseason need?
There's a couple, but I think you got to go, Dave. You got to go with the most obvious one, and that's that second line center position. It's not that it's a glaring need, but now it's even like now you got like a guy like Demidov that you think the kid maybe not as early as next year, but he starts to develop into like a point producer, and you just don't want to have the same issues you had for the last 10, 15 years. Having Thomas Plekanec, who offense doesn't come easy. Maybe David Desharnais is another guy you want to throw out there. You're playing with a highly skilled winger, and let's just say for now, for the sake of the question, it's Patrick Laine on the other side. I don't think you can go out there with a guy who is a 40-point guy, an Alex Newhook, a Kirby Dach, or whoever that may be. It's time to get some serious skill level. Somebody who can push the offense and play to the strengths of whether it's Laine or Demidov, look, kind of two different wingers. But I think to complete that line, and you didn't bring this kid out of Russia, you didn't put him into the playoffs, and you didn't, put him in a spot on that second line. For now, maybe he gets bumped, maybe he gets moved around, but it's the same thing if Slav or Caulfield comes to that quote-unquote second line. You need to have somebody who offense comes relatively easy to. I'm not looking for a point-a-game player, but you're looking for somebody with an offensive punch to complement what maybe their second line with those two wingers.
All right, George.
I mean, the low-hanging fruit is the easy one here. I think the second-line center, which is going to bring us probably to our next question. I think you have to get one. I'm going to echo some of the stuff Simon says, but I'm also going to say I think you got to help Nick Suzuki. That's another thing that gets lost in all this is that Nick Suzuki is logging those big-time minutes against the big center, the number 2 center. He needs help up front. There's too much going on for Nick Suzuki, who, despite that, had a career year, 89 points, I believe he had, or 87. Look, I think they have to get a second line center. Not they should, they might, they have to get one. And if I had a second wish list, I would say you're gonna have to get a big winger. You're gonna have to get somebody in the vein of an Armia, maybe that has a little bit more physical nature to his game, because we saw that in the playoffs, right? We saw where the Montreal Canadiens had pretty much all the tools, but Tom Wilson was allowed to kind of go and run wild, and the Montreal Canadiens didn't have much of an answer for them, except for Game 3, where I think there's about 20,000 people that intervened in that game, but if you take that aside, the Montreal Canadiens were physically beat up in that series. They're going to need a big winger. They're going to need a second-line center. Hey, I wouldn't mind a big defenseman, too, to go along with that. But, hey, it's not Christmas.
Do you think you guys agree that maybe you need to replace David Savar's veteran presence a little bit, or not even? You just let the youth fly?
I think that veteran stuff I think is completely overplayed with this squad. Like Nick Suzuki's on his second contract, Cole Caulfield on his second contract. Those two guys that were part of a team that went to a Stanley Cup final. Correct me if I'm wrong. Brendan Gallagher's been around forever. Josh Anderson could not be described as somebody who is a
Alex Newhook.
Alex Newhook. Well, Alex relatively young, but a ring. So perfect.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Mike Matheson has tons of games played in the National Hockey League. So, I think you need to shoot forward with that skill level before you need to address the leadership core. Let's just say your captain is Nick Suzuki and Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson or Mike Matheson. I don't know. That says, I don't know. It's like there's a lot of games played there.
Pretty good.
Again, once you're on your second NHL contract, you're not a kid anymore, right? So I think skill is what they need first and foremost.
I don't think the veteran is the answer either. I think you got to get size and skill. I think those are the double S.
I love it. All right. And that kind of leads me into my next question. There's all sorts of buzz around the league and on social media about Sidney Crosby potentially, moving on from the Pittsburgh Penguins and the mess that they have over there. And, one of the obvious connections and the places he would like to play would be in Montreal. Allegedly, of course, allegedly. So I just want to know
don't get us in trouble for tampering or anything.
Of course not. Of course, maybe some soft tampering. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I just want to know for fun, what would you give up to see Sidney Crosby play in a Montreal Canadiens uniform?
So I'm one of the guys I think that's willing to give up more than most, and I'm going to tell you why before I tell you what I'd give up. The reason is because I think Sidney Crosby on the Montreal Canadiens absolutely helps every single player on this team. I mean, you're learning from the best of the best, and a guy that just knows how to do it. I think Nick Suzuki becomes better. I think Cole Caulfield becomes better. I think the entire Montreal organization becomes better if you get a Sidney Crosby. It's obvious. So all that being said, I'm ready to give up both firsts, and I'm willing to give up probably Mayu. I'll give Mayu too. Both firsts. Mayu, I will give up. I don't know, maybe a B prospect in Jonathan Roy or something, and maybe a second round pick down the line too. So 2 firsts.
That's fair.
Another first rounder in Mayu, a B prospect in Roy or I don't know, Kapanen or somebody, and maybe a second round pick. I'm willing to go that far.
Interesting. I wonder if that gets that done. Simon?
I give up a lot that, if you were part of the roster in game number 5, I'm not interested in giving up anybody unless they were willing to take Anderson, Gallagher, Evans, and some guys, which they're not.
Yeah, so, they don't want those guys.
Habs didn't, be bad. Forget the COVID year, the bubble year. I think they're like on 6-7 years of starting in the Atlantic Division and not making the playoffs. So all that pain and suffering got you. Max Pacioretty dealt out of town, so you get Nick Suzuki, and then you suck, and you get Slav and Reinbacher and Demidov. You get all these hard draft picks. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to part ways with those assets, no matter how great Sidney Crosby is. It's not forever. It's not, it's not a 27-year-old. It's not a 28-year-old. It's not a 29. It's not a 30-year-old. Like, eventually, he's going to become mortal, and I'm not sure I want to give up anything that has, like, just, go fanboy for a second. Slav, Cole, Suzuki, Lane Hudson. You're talking about a decade plus worth of prime hockey coming up. And I'm only asking because if I'm Pittsburgh, what I'm going to ask for. They're not asking for anybody in your bottom 6. Maybe Reinbacher. Okay, I'm only, like I said, if you weren't part of the Game 5 roster, I'm open to anything. 2 first-round picks. You could take another one next year if you want. I could care less. You could take first-round picks as long as Sidney Crosby's playing. That's the deal. As long as he's playing on the Canadiens, you can have my first-round pick. I could care less because I think they'll be a very good team, and they'll be picking somewhere between 22 and 32, maybe even 12 and 32, maybe even 5 and 32. So if you weren't part of the Game 5 roster, I'm open to overpaying for Sidney Crosby. So George is 2 first, George is second. You don't want Mayu? Take Mayu and Reinbacher. Take an entire pairing. I could care less. You can. I think you can replace those players. Reinbacher, look, number 5 pick overall. You got to be careful, but I'm not going away from the core, the nucleus of this team for somebody who is a Mount Rushmore hockey player, but he's not on the back 9 of his career. He's walking up 18.
I mean, I agree with that entire thing, right? I mean, maybe where I disagree is I don't know if I'm ready to give 4 first-round picks for Sidney Crosby for 2 years of Sidney Crosby, but I'm ready to give up 3 and a B prospect, and let's see what happens.
The Joshua Roys of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have as many of these B prospect guys as you want.
Top track guy, those guys as well. I guess you have to pay, but Habs didn't suck for the last 7 years to just
Agree. You can't give these
Walk
guys
on a player that I don't know. Look, he's a great player. He's a point-a-game player, but he's not going to be that forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very dangerous.
But I guys, I think that's a fair offer if you think about it, because when is the last time we saw anybody get traded for 3 first-round picks? It hasn't been, it hasn't been done. So I feel it's a fair deal. I'm maybe Pittsburgh fans.
And you're picking, let's say you were to give 3 consecutive years of first-round picks.
Yeah.
The Penguins, and you're picking twice in the second round, twice in the first round, over the next 3 years. Well,
I don't know. I think I maybe Pens fans would disagree, but I feel it's a pretty fair deal.
Yeah.
I think one X factor is, if I'm Kyle Dubas, I'm hanging up on Ken Hughes, because I'm not going to ever win a deal with Ken Hughes. If I had to bet Ken Hughes versus Kyle Dubas, Ken Hughes all day, that's for sure. But yeah, absolutely. So that's interesting. Thanks for your takes. Let us know in the comment section what would you give up to see Sidney Crosby 87 in the Montreal Canadiens uniform. And thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more content on the Starters 690. Find us everywhere: Instagram, X, YouTube, everywhere at the Starters 690. And check Simon and Joey out on TSN 690, 10 to noon every Saturday and Sunday. Thanks, guys.
Ciao, boys.
It was fun.